Well, welcome to the Stonewall History Initiative. I'm Linda Schuler, volunteer coordinator of the Stonewall Trailblazers. Mark Miller is here. He's my co-coordinator. And also we have Zach Boyer, our program manager. We're so excited today to have Val Thogmartin and Craig Huffman-McNulty with us. Hopefully Craig Covey will be able to join us later. There are the three young men in their 20s came together and started Stonewall Union. And a little while later, in our webinar, Susan Powell is going to join us. And here's Craig Covey.
There he is.
So we're all here, and I'm going to turn it over to Zach Boyer, our program manager.
Thank you, Linda. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much to both Craig's and Val for joining us. Thank you for Mark and Linda for allowing me to be part of this process. And a huge thank you to everyone who registered for the webinar, as well as for everyone who might be joining us on Facebook Live. We really appreciate you taking some time for this conversation. For those who for those who didn't join one of the previous 3 iterations of this, this is going to be some fun new information for those of you who joined some of the other one-on-one conversations. Some of these questions might sound familiar, but it's exciting to be able to hear the perspective of all 3 of our co-founders at one space. So that way we can, what I'm hoping for is a little bit of, well, I remember it this way, but I remember it this way. So I'm hoping to be able to get a little bit of that. And get some more information than perhaps we covered in the last few sessions as well. So I would love to start with if you, everyone of both Craig's and Val can just share your name, if you could share your gender pronouns and where you're living currently. We'll start out with that. And I'll start with Val.
Val Thogmartin, and I live in Columbus. Been here my entire life. My gender pronoun is he. I own a bar called South Bend Tavern, have for the last almost 11 years now, and love what I do.
Thank you, Val. I'll pivot to Craig in the blue.
I'm Craig Huffman, he, him. I live in Kansas City now after 25 years in Washington, D.C. I left Columbus in 1992 after I went to work on the Clinton campaign. And I am now retired from the federal service and work in my yard a lot.
Fantastic. And we'll go to the cat whisperer, Craig Covey.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig. Hi, Val.
Hey, Craig.
Boy, it's really good to see you guys. Sorry I was late getting on. You look great. Miss you guys. I hope to come down to Columbus and see you soon, Val.
I hope you do.
Yes, please.
And Craig, if I'm ever in Kansas City, it seems unlikely, but
well, I'm more likely to get to Columbus. I know, so we're good.
So I'm Craig Covey. I live in Canton, Ohio now, which is where I was born and raised. I lived in Detroit area and Michigan for 35 years, but I moved home. And like Craig, I'm retired now. And I work in the yard a whole lot too. I got major gardens and I'm tree planting. I own 4.5 acres. I got a couple cats that they're in a good mood because I just got home. So they'll join us on the thing.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you making some time for us. So if we could start out, so I'm sure there's a lot of folks, especially folks who tuned into the previous sessions. If you could talk about what was the catalyst event that brought you all together and where did you meet prior to forming Stonewall Union?
I've told this story so many times. Somebody else's turn to do this.
Val, you start because I want to hear your version.
Yeah.
Well, the catalyst event was the Jerry Falwell Moral Majority rally that they're supposed to be having. I think it was on the east side of town, and several of us got together to go protest it. And then we ended up going to Craig Huffman's house afterwards. There was about 8 of us, I think, 7 or 8. And we decided there was time for Columbus to have an organization, other than a really good organization at Ohio State, but there was time for an organization that dealt with the general community as well.
Exactly right. And I do remember vividly going to Craig's house. He lived in Clintonville.
It was more than 7 or 8 people. It was more than 7 and 8 people. That was quite a party.
And Jerry Falwell had announced that he was coming to Columbus to organize, and he, of course, was the leader then of the right wing, the Christian right. The Christian right was a newer phenomenon, and he had followed the Anita Bryant situation. She in the 70s was advocating against gay lesbian people. And Val, Craig and I were all similar in age. We were in our early 20s, early to mid 20s. And there were no gay organizations for us. There was the student groups, and there was a gay church, and there was the Catholic gay group. But there were no political organizations. And I was very political. Craig was very political. Val was. So, and I've shared this a lot of people don't seem to know this, but we really did start it as a strong advocacy, grassroots, kind of in your face, gay liberation type organization with a heavy angle towards political action. And we went to that church where Falwell was supposed to organize, and we outnumbered them at least 7-1. On Cleveland Avenue, if I recall, North Cleveland Avenue.
Yeah, it was a Calvary Baptist church. And remember, he didn't show up. We scared him off.
No.
Scared him off.
And he never did organize. The Mormon majority did not organize. Now, it did wake up some of the Christian conservatives who were anti-gay in the Columbus area. And there was never a shortage of those folks, although many of them came from sort of south of Columbus and the more rural areas. I think it's still that way. The city of Columbus itself. But what gay, lesbian, and the LGBT folks don't understand probably now is that Columbus was not a big gay mecca. It was just another Midwestern city. We used to call it Cowtown, other than Ohio State. You know, it was a bit of a Midwestern, business-oriented, conservative city. And it was through the slow, methodical work of us in the Stonewall group. And a lot of it was smoke and mirrors. We had some fun in really promoting ourselves, and we always made ourselves look bigger than we were. We always claimed larger numbers than we had, but over time, we did end up with hundreds and then thousands of members, all different folks. We were cross-gender. We at the beginning realized we wanted to be diverse, so we had women who joined. We sought out women. We had minorities. I was going to ask Val, what was your friend's name? Larry, was it Larry? One of our first Blackboard?
Larry Sims. Larry Sims.
Yeah. And you know, we realized, I think we had a Latino members as well, and drag queens. I'm sorry about this kitty, but she's cuter than I am, so.
Get out.
So we organized, and we basically set up the organization. We based our name on Stonewall, you know, the bar, the riots that happened in New York City. We added the word union. We were all three liberals, and we started getting names. And, you know, I tell folks that it wasn't just us three. I mean, we were sort of the leaders, but we each had a partner. Denny Velat was involved. Steve Wilson was my partner. He was sort of our tech guy. Back then, technology was brand new. Computers were brand new. And if I recall, Steve was sort of the guy that got us organized online. Well, there was no online. And he started computerizing mailing lists and mailing labels and things like that. And so, and then Keith McKnight was pretty involved, was he not, Val? Wasn't he sort of a coordinator?
He was at first, and he was also in the very first starting of the Gay Men's Chorus too.
Yeah,
because he's
yeah. It was the Lambda Men's Chorus, and Keith was in that with me and other people. It was perceived. People don't realize there was a functioning chorus before the Columbus Men's Chorus, which I was also part of. So I don't want to minimize that, but there was Lambda Men's Chorus, and we actually performed at Vets Memorial in the side hall, and we did the first two Pride parades. We sang from the steps. And so Keith was Keith was the best looking of all of us too. So there was certainly that factor.
Well, yeah, Steve Wilson was cute as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I had a crush on
Keith
Keith.
yeah, for sure. And the first women, there was Cindy Cyrus, who was a straight woman who got involved with the group pretty early.
Cindy was also a very political activist as well prior.
Right, she was our link to the Democratic Party. And we pretty quickly started making friends with city council members, with judge candidates. I mean, Dave Leland, I think, is still a big.
It certainly is.
He was new and young back in those days, and he was always a supporter of us. I have a photograph. I think Doug Whaley has it of all of us, and Rhonda and some others in the office of Dick Celeste when Governor Celeste signed that executive order banning discrimination against LGBT people in state employment, which was mid 80s, early to mid 80s, if I recall.
83. I was it was the first year of office. His first year. He was elected in 82, so it was 83.
Yeah. So we were pioneers, that is for sure. Folks think that this movement is kind of new, but it's and it was going on before we were, way back. But by the we really were pretty successful in attracting a lot of folks. I told people about how we used to leaflet the bars. That was how we got the word out. The gay bars were mostly downtown in one area, and we would go down at night and leaflet hundreds and hundreds of cars and put flyers about Stonewall under the windshield wiper and promote events and stuff.
And sign people up to vote.
Yeah. We
this is
people up to vote.
Yeah.
Endorse candidates.
Actually, that's how Doug Whaley first came on, because we were in Friends signing people up to vote, and Doug came out to the table. And that's when he first joined.
I don't remember that. So that's how we first got connected to Professor Whaley at Ohio State.
Yeah. Awesome.
And wasn't he the one who then eventually introduced us to Rhonda Rivera?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. He said, before you guys, you're doing great, but at some point you're going to have to hook up with Rhonda Rivera. He said she was a well-known leader in the lesbian community and a well-known attorney and a civil rights person. And I think, were you there, Val and Craig? I know you were when we went and visited Rhonda for the first time.
Yeah, and remember, we had not been incorporated as a 501 yet, and that was her, got us all organized officially, and we did everything out of Craig's apartment. I mean, his apartment was also our office, which was also our meeting place, which was also where we had parties, which sometimes the meetings and parties were one and the same. And we did a lot of bar fundraising, and we come back to your apartment afterwards, late at night after we would be out there. So you had to be right back then. It was before the Eagle, so the Kismet. And Trends would let us use the coat check room, and this, not to take any of the Trends, our first foundation dollars came from Bob Kashner at Trends, which Rick Romilay organized for us to meet with Bob, and he wrote us a check for $100, and $100 in 1981 was a significant amount. It allowed us to open a checking account. We had checks printed. We were able to buy a button press, and all of our materials we did ourselves. We made our own buttons from a press button thing. We used press type to do our logo and to print everything.
We made copies. We had people who would surreptitiously make copies at wherever they worked, and bring us 100 copies of this and 100 copies of that. And that apartment, of course, I want people to know that was not a fancy, none of us had much money back then, and I had probably the least. And that apartment was even then, I think, was considered a rough neighborhood. It was East 8th Avenue, 231 East 8th Avenue. And it was a cool, fun place, though. But you're right.
Yeah, that sleeping porch, and But we did all our fundraising there. So we did the coat checks, and they would let us keep all the tip money and everything from the coat checks, and that's how we survived. That at the first beginning was on coat check money and doing these little fundraisers. It was before we had cocktail receptions. And
I told Steve Wilson, who sort of organized that mailing list, as we started to get hundreds and then even 1,000 or a couple thousand addresses of lesbian gay people in Columbus, he then began to analyze them, and we found that there were neighborhoods where gay lesbian people were concentrated. They were concentrated in the Clintonville area where Craig lived. They were concentrated at OSU and all around the campus, and they were concentrated in German Village. And we used that information when we started talking to candidates, and we said, listen, we have, I think we probably said we have 5,000, names and addresses of voters who live in these precincts. And that got the attention of candidates and elected officials.
Our first Republican candidate that we endorsed was Karen Snyder, and she lived in the Clintonville area, and she had us all, if you remember, she had a holiday party, and she actually had us to her house for a holiday party, and we had just endorsed her. She lost the election, but she still had us there. And so that was at the beginning of what looked like the Republican Party as it was back then. And Columbus Republicans have always been a much more liberal set than Ohio is in general. But that was our first, when we attracted a Republican to want our endorsement, and we campaigned for her, and she actually, Clintonville, had us up to her house too. So these were the small things that we did at the beginning that laid seeds to everything that's come now, which is just miraculous. I mean, when we were home, all three of us were at the ceremony to dedicate Stonewall building 2 years ago, and the fact that Mayor Gunther came and it was just crazy. We were lucky to have a mayor acknowledge that we existed back then, and here we are, the hands around us, and cutting the ribbon for this beautiful building. And it was,
if I recall, Craig, wasn't the mayor first? It was Moody, but I think Dana Reinhardt became the mayor when we were active. He wanted nothing to do with us, and was kind of a lobbyist against the gay community in Columbus back then in those days. Yeah,
that's very true. It wasn't until...
I was going to say, I know you all had different roles in the organization, and do you want to talk a little bit about that? Who you kind of started organizing, you came together after that meeting, and Craig, Covey, I always hear that story, how you were sitting around an apartment on the floor and y'all had cat hair on you. Now I see where that came from.
Yeah, it's not the same cat, but yeah.
You had Siamese cats then too.
I still have Siamese cats. We were really good, by the way, with media, and it was a combination. Val was on all the TV stations. All of us were, but Doug Whaley and I had this great shtick where we do all sorts of radio programs. And back then radio was bigger, and a lot of talk shows would have us on, and Doug and I just had a ball and reached, tens of thousands of people with those radio programs. And then when we did parades, I remember Val being on TV a lot on the news, and Craig too. And, I think we weren't afraid. Maybe we should have been, but we were really out there, and we weren't afraid of the media. So one of our reasons of success was that we were in the newspapers. A lot of times when the media wanted to talk to a gay leader or a lesbian leader in a community, they couldn't find anyone. Well, that wasn't a problem with us. I mean, if I wasn't available, Val would call them, and if Val, Craig would talk to them, and our spouses would. So we pretty quickly made it clear that we were out, we weren't going to go away. And we started talking about how Columbus was a welcoming, even before it was, we started talking about the large community that was there. And that feeds on itself. Yeah. I mean, I ended up doing the same thing up in Michigan with a city called Ferndale. And started, it was just a little redneck town with losing population. And oh, Craig, I got cat hair all over me now, just like the old days. But we, it's a lot of it is PR, and we learned it and used it.
And
So when-
Craig's being modest too. He became a city council member and the mayor of that town as well. So
Right. Craig was the treasurer. Craig Huffman there was the treasurer of our organization at the beginning. He took care of the money. Val was the vice president when we first started, if I recall. And Val, you did a lot again with the parades and stuff, and organizing, helping with the bars, and I did a lot of the media and stuff. We should probably mention again that Doug Whaley was really helpful. Doug was a middle-aged person at that point. We looked up to him as a father figure, and he had money and lived in Worthington, and he introduced us to Rhonda, and Rhonda then introduced us to the lesbian community. And pretty quickly we decided the group was going to be, what was the word we used? Parity. We said we're going to have gender parity. And the way we did that was we had a board of directors. I don't remember the number, maybe it was 12 or 13. And we said half are going to be women and half are going to be men. And so, you know, we solved that problem right away by just saying these are seats for women. And I was kind of proud of that.
Yeah.
hey Val, can you talk about that first parade and getting the
Yeah.
permits and because you did all that. So I just
You mean at Goodale or?
that first you went. I remember you getting the permits and what you went through with the city.
Oh yeah. Well, I wasn't the only one though. I thought I'm pretty sure Cindy Cyrus helped out with that, and there was a couple other people. But yeah, it took forever. It seemed like to get the permits and all that for the parade, and you know, at that time people weren't overly anxious to be helpful, so we really had to kind of dig in and do what we could.
Well, and there weren't a lot of parades. I mean, back then there were political events. I remember marching against Reagan up High Street a couple of times in 1980. And, you know, we were not political novices. At least I had worked with progressive groups, and we had worked with the National Organization for Women, which was still big then. And, but I don't think they took us seriously, and they thought, okay, these gays are going to march, what have you. I think we surprised a few people because in reality, we had 700-800 people. I think the newspapers, you know, said we had 250 people or something, but they would always undercount us, and then I would always overcount us. And the thing doubled this next year in 83. It seemed like we had 1,500 to a couple thousand, and by 84 we were getting thousands of people, including people coming from Cincinnati. And you know, we really were kind of, what's the word, we wanted to be big shots, and so we started inviting, you know, Cincinnati to come, and we told the groups in Dayton to come because gay lesbian groups were starting to form in these other cities. And Akron folks came down and Cleveland folks came down, and that was one of the ways that we started to build the parade. And then as more Columbus people saw this large event, it always made the newspapers. Then we started getting people just coming to watch. Now, it blows me away that it got as big as it did. The last time I went to a parade, Craig, I think you and Val were both there, probably was, I don't know, it was some anniversary, but
it was 96.
Back,
it was 96.
Which? 2006?
96.
I didn't know it was that long ago, but
yeah, it was.
we got to sit in the back. I was sitting in the back, I think with Craig of a Lincoln Continental, you know, convertible. I felt like Jackie Kennedy, actually.
Maybe it was a little. It was late. It was a 20. I think it was the 25th, actually. I think it was the 25th, and we were because it was the OSU. President was the Grand Marshal, and then we were followed him in the cars. It was quite something. But you know, we were back. I was back with my late brother in the pouring down rain. Was it 4 years ago that the rain, and it went on without a hitch, and then and people from all over the country donated money to recover from the festival, and Steve Schellenbarger managed to put out the call to all of us former Columbusites all over the country and to chip in and make sure that Stonewall survived that
Oh, I didn't know
rainstorm.
that. I didn't know that story. That was 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 4 years ago. It was the rain out, and the last time. Linda, you would know. You organized it.
16, and the cool thing about that was Jim Obergefell was the Grand Marshal, and in front of Jim was the Columbus Public Schools. They led the parade, and their superintendent and out was there with them, and so it was really a really exciting day. You know, and I always say, gee, can you imagine those kids? They say, what was your first parade like? And they'd say, well, I marched with my teachers, the superintendent of the schools. Oh, and Jim Obergefell was right behind me on a float. I mean, it blew me away. So what you guys created was so exciting, but it was quite the day. But at the end of the parade, and I was kind of standing there waving the parade forward, and every time I raised my arm, water would go down my sleeve. But everyone was in such a great mood.
It really was
Dancing up to me at the end of it. And so it sounds like, well, I guess you just don't rain on the gay parade because we just get more festive.
We do. Hey, Val, I was talking about how after the parades, now this was way back in the 80s, but I think it continued. Someone videotaped the parades as they were happening. And then when everybody went to the clubs and the bars after the rally, we would be able to watch the parade that just occurred on the video screens at the gay bars, like at the Trade Winds and the Eagle and the Garage. Do you remember who? Do you guys remember who videotaped for us?
I remember being videotaped, but I, for the life of me, cannot remember who did it.
And now I forgot all about that, but yes, I definitely remember that. I was going to it and watching it afterwards. Yeah.
I could see his face. I think I know who. I think I could see his face, but I can't think of his name.
It wasn't Ken Snow, was it?
Maybe.
Because Ken did a lot of stuff for later on when we did the Lavender Bodybuilding Championships and stuff for the task force. Ken Snow did all of our videography. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Ken.
I keep thinking of someone named Dave, but I really don't know. Maybe Steve Wilson. We should check with him. He might know. But someone would videotape. Did a good job, and then it would immediately go to the bars, and the bars would play it on a loop.
I remember thinking at the time too, how the equipment back then was not streamlined at all. The poor person who was filming everything had to carry like a videotape thing on this side, the camera itself, and then something else on the other side. I thought, you're braver than I am for doing that, because that takes a lot of strength.
I wanted you to touch on, I know your first parade, it used to be in Columbus, you did not have to pay for a parade permit. Everyone could get a permit. So I know that suddenly the city changed the rules on you guys.
I think that was I'm sorry, Craig. I think it was 84. The first year, I know we didn't pay any money. The second year, I don't remember paying much money, or the police protection was free. And again, I think it's because they weren't used to it and they didn't expect a big crowd. But I know that it was before 85, because we ended up suing with the ACLU, the city of Columbus. If you guys remember, Doug and I ended up on the board of directors for a year at least of the Central Ohio ACLU. There was a gentleman that was with the Ohio Law School who sued the city of Columbus, saying this was free speech, and this small organization shouldn't have to pay for police protection and permits and all that. That was the big cost, was for police protection or police escorts. We lost the case, I remember, but I remember I testified. It was the first time I'd ever, been up in a court and raised my hand and swore to tell the truth. But we lost that case. But I remember that might have been 84. Do you guys remember?
I don't.
Maybe 85.
No, I don't.
No.
It's funny that some of the same struggles that we're still dealing with today of like a huge cost for the festival and the march is that police protection, and that is kind of built into the local laws now, to where if you are going to have an event of a certain size, along with that comes that cost added. But
Sure.
as an LGBT organization, you can see with so many other cities, the cities recognize that the revenue that's being brought in by these types of festivals, and they're already paying for them. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, in the future that could be something that we're able to see here in Columbus.
I would encourage you. It really just means going to these organizations. You know, the Chamber of Commerce knows full well how much money comes into the city. The city knows that. You might have to play hardball, but and of course, you're getting a lot more sponsorships. I mean, when I started the parade in Ferndale, Michigan, this was maybe 12 years ago. You know, again, we started with a shoestring, but I'm told now that the woman who runs the Ferndale Pride Festival, people throw money at her. I mean, she gets these $25,000 sponsorships and $50,000 sponsorships. So, you know, when you have companies like GM and you know, Bud Light and Nike and all these big companies wanting to sponsor, then, you know, there's no reason that you shouldn't have plenty of money to pay the cops and then have profit for the organization.
Well, we do our best, because I think that with leadership in the past, as well as the leadership currently, we want to be able to pivot those toward community serving programs. So we're trying our best to balance what the city can recognize as an added benefit that they can flip the bill for, versus what we're able to do with our sponsorship, with whether it be memberships or whether it be sponsorships with larger organizations. It would be better and more conducive to us utilizing those funds to serve the community if the city could go ahead and recognize the amount of revenue for the businesses that we're bringing in, if they go ahead and pay for it. But
that's right.
We can move away from that. I did want to note, I didn't want to interrupt anybody, but though Pride looked very different this year, it kind of is a return to form in that we had the virtual march that I was out this past Saturday at a certain time of night, and I looked up at the bar I was at AWOL on Parsons, and I looked up at the screen, and there was the virtual march playing, and I couldn't help but remember the memories that you all shared of the filming of the parade, and then later that night seeing it at bars. It was really awesome to be able to see that happening again, even though the virtual march was very different than what we do in a typical year. It was still great to be able to look up in a hazy state early in the morning on Saturday and see the parade happening right there amongst our community. So
well, we've been there. I did it many, many times 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Hey, isn't there, though, I thought there was going to be a LGBT Columbus Gay Pride Parade October 3rd. Am I wrong on that? Is there something happening?
We're doing lots of stuff. I think in the past year, we've pivoted from focusing all of our Pride efforts to just being in June. We're really hoping to be able to uplift Pride 365. So with our Pride 365 model, we're looking at lots of moments throughout the year to where we can have moments of gathering as well as celebration. And with October being LGBT History Month, we're hoping that we're able to have some type of moment, whether that be looking like a march or a parade or looking like something else. We're definitely going to have something in October to celebrate.
I'm interested in what's going to happen this year. I'm sorry, Linda. What's going to happen this year, going into next year, when you're talking about organizing and stuff, as all these all the suburbs.
Yeah.
I know Franklinton's. I've seen advertisements for the Franklinton event all over the place. I don't even live in Columbus, and I've seen them all over my Facebook page, my Instagram page. I've seen the Franklinton, that's going to be an event. I know Arlington had an event. So all these communities, because of COVID, are doing their own small events. And we'll see, interesting how that feeds into, it also gives you more argument, because all these little economic sub-pockets, not just Columbus now, can go back next year and you can say, okay, Arlington produced such and such and such. And all these little towns know exactly where, as Craig says, they all know where their dollars are. And next year you can use that as even more to join. It's going to be fabulous to see what comes of COVID. There are good things that are going to come from COVID. And I think these little small events in all these communities across central Ohio are really impressive. We're not doing anything like that here in Kansas City, that's for sure.
Agreed.
Worcester has a gay organization. Mansfield has a gay organization. You're right, Craig. The suburbs, but also the smaller towns are starting to organize and have pride activities as well.
It's so exciting. And I wanted to go back though to that very first Pride, and you guys take that street. Wow. And were you nervous? And please tell the story about Val being up on that ladder. But some of those early prides, were you nervous? And I know the religious right was out there in full force. And you guys are 20 years old. How'd you feel out there?
We were excited, first of all. I mean, we were nervous, but only because we were about to put on a big event that we'd spent months working on, and we were excited and hoping it would go well. We wanted to have floats and stuff. You know, that first couple of years, we didn't have actual floats. You know, it was put together with chewing gum and rubber bands. But Val can explain the whole truck thing. But I remember lining the people up, and my job was sort of to get them. I think what you did, Linda, I was sort of the, the person that said, okay, you go next, and the dignity goes after that. And we had flags we were selling and T-shirts that we were selling. But Val, I mean, my vision of Val was that he climbed up on this, what we called a float, but was way up high and was flying a flag. And that's, of course, what ended up on the news. Val, tell us that.
Well, it was built at Ed Phillips' house. And again, I said earlier, I cannot remember how we secured that step ladder because it was on top of a van. And of course, it had the little luggage runners on the side, but that couldn't have been the only way we fastened it down because things seemed to be fairly secure. And at the time, I'm in my middle 20s, stupid and not thinking about anything like that. But I was probably a good 18 feet into the air. And the other part of it was when we turned towards the State House and we got almost up to the State House, all of a sudden I felt two eggs fly right by my head. And there was a couple of rednecks, I guess, down on the street. Well, fortunately, there were some police right there that got a hold of him and escorted him out of there. But that was a surprise, too, let me tell you.
I'll bet. You say the right wing was organized. I mean, I don't recall there being large numbers that first year. There were some Christian protesters, Craig, you might remember, but it seems to me, I mean, again, we only had about 700 people. There might have been 15, 20, 25, protesters, and they would be praying and they'd have signs that said, you're going to burn in hell and things like that. But I never was afraid of them and I was never intimidated. I kind of laughed at them and we engaged with them and hooted and hollered and chanted.
Yeah, I told Linda this, and I've said this 100 times that we probably should have been afraid, but we weren't. We didn't know to be. And looking back, it's like shit. We probably should have been. The real protests against us didn't happen until year 3 when the Huntington Bank Shares building was going up, and across from the State House, where the old Neal House was. The Huntington Bank Shares building was going up. And I remember the union construction workers heckling us. Not the Christian right, but it was the union hard hats that, of course, that's all completely changed now too. But I remember that vividly. That was our first anti-demonstration to our event when we went by there and filled up the State House. I vividly remember that.
I don't remember that, but I do remember one year, and it might have been the 4th year. My last year was 85. I do remember a large group of Christian protesters, and I think they were on the State House grounds, but they started speaking in tongues. And I was sober. I was very sober at all these events, but it sure felt like I was tripping at that point because they were talking in tongues and they were waving their hands and I just thought, how bizarre is this? They were charismatic Pentecostals or whatever those people were. And I think they probably thought we were crazy and we thought they were crazy. I don't know where they came from. Southern Ohio, maybe.
Might have been my neighbors, my cousins coming up. We don't know. So as we are coming up to the last few minutes, I want to invite anyone who is in the webinar or on Facebook Live, if you have any questions for our co-founders as we are starting to wind down, go ahead and put that in the Q&A feature if you're on the Zoom webinar, and go ahead and put it in the comments if you're on Facebook. And as we are preparing for that, I did want to ask each of you if you could share either your proudest or your favorite memory of your time, either with Stonewall in the beginning or something maybe that's happening now that this is a proud or a favorite memory of yours. So I'll start with Val.
Oh, gosh, there's been so many. I think several of my favorite memories were, since I've been involved in the bar community for 40 years, is when at first, when there was absolutely no government support or practically no community support for those with AIDS, is how we got together. And there was like 4 or 5 of us bars that got together and held fundraisers, and vastly with the help of Columbus's very well-known drag queens at the time, and raised thousands of dollars to help people who had no other support during these early years, and people who were just, thrown out of their families because they had AIDS and were ostracized because they had AIDS. And we were able to get together, and not only gay male bars, but lesbian bars all got together and held fundraisers and raised money to help these people out. And I think that's one of my proudest memories of doing that.
It's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Before I start crying, I'll pivot to Craig Huffman-McNulty.
I'll follow on Val there, that each of us went on to do other things, that when we turned the organization over to the future, Val, as he was just saying, with the bars and the AIDS, and we did the lavender bodybuilding contest, and we did 3 Times a Lady, and events that we did to raise money for the AIDS task force and the Joshua House, and other activities. And I moved on to Washington and began a whole new activism career. Craig moved to Michigan and started over again, the whole thing from scratch over again. So while we left our imprint on Columbus to give it birth, I'm proud of the fact that we each didn't just stop there, that we went on to do other things, and still to this day are contributing in our own way. Yeah. And left. And every time I told Zach this, and for everybody that's watching, I get emotional this, because Zach to me is the epitome of everything we wanted to achieve. And he's just one person, but I like to look at Zach as an example of these young people who come out forcefully, proudly, deal with their struggles at a young age and move on and are so involved. And that's just something that I think is a legacy that I personally am proud of, and I think all of us are. And Zach, you represent so much, and I'm really proud of you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. And last but not least, what about you, Craig? What is your favorite or proudest moment?
There were so many that I look back, and that's one of my favorite times of my life, because we also had fun. I mean, we were serious and we were doing things and serious political stuff, but we were having a blast at the time, maybe because we were young. And but I'm going to pick the very last parade that I was at in 1985 that I organized, and I've always been kind of a bit of a drama queen, and I kind of organized. I knew I was leaving and going to Michigan to organize up there and do the same stuff. And I timed it so that my last day in Columbus was the day of the parade. And I got to say sort of goodbye to everybody. It makes me very sad. And I often think, what if I'd have stayed? Because I do miss the city and I love the city. But unbeknownst to me, Rhonda Rivera and some of the board members decided to put something together for me as a gift, as a going away present or what have you. And they fashioned a silver ring with the logo of Stonewall Union. And I still have it to this day, and I'm going to try to show it on the screen. Yeah, you can maybe see that a little bit. But that was the logo. I don't know if this logo of Stonewall Union is still the same, but it was a lambda and stripes and stuff. But I've kept this ring, obviously, all those years. It means a lot to me, and I wear it on occasion. But I basically said goodbye, and it was very emotional for me. And I got to basically say goodbye to, about 7,000 people. And that was just very neat to me. And then every time I come back, I just enjoy the hell out of the parade, because it's really what we wanted to do, and we did it. And the fact that it's continued for 35 years more, or, you guys kept working on it for a while. It just means that, yeah, we were successful. And I'm glad. One year, a couple years ago, I saw a news story and it said 500,000 people at the Columbus Gay Pride Parade. And I thought, that's pretty cool. If I get run over by a bus today, I will be happy, because we did some good stuff.
You sure did. What was the number of the last year that we stepped off in 2019, Linda?
Oh, we were, I think actually we beat Chicago, because Chicago had started to have
Okay.
Close to a
limited
million.
number of entries. So we were probably the largest pride in the Midwest. It was unbelievable. And the cool thing about it was the whole city came out, and there were children running around, families, and every socioeconomic group. It was a mix of all of us. It was a fabulous mix, and they're all celebrating pride. And as we always say, pride is still a march until we all have all of our rights and we're all equal. But what a celebration. And that was my last, and I'll never forget that one either. And so maybe, but it was really exciting. It really was, just to see all the public officials out, because as early on when you guys were there, you sure didn't have any public officials, and there sure weren't any churches there, and nobody was working with their workplace. So
Unitarians.
yes, except for the good group.
That was it.
You guys really created something special. I wanted to mention too, speaking of parody, Susan Pyle is here, and I know she was on the board. And I thought maybe you'd like to see Susan, and maybe she'd like to join in. And
for sure.
Yes, absolutely. I knew she was going to be here.
Susan up now. So I just promoted Susan to a panelist. So Susan, if you can unmute your mic and camera, we'd love to bring you on.
Very cool.
Yay! Hey.
And then you just need to unmute. There we go.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Susan.
Good to see y'all.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Susan, you look great.
Well, thank you. You guys do too. We're
You
still
haven't aged-
fabulous.
You haven't aged a bit. You still look like you're 26.
Yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
got our CT scans and whatnot.
Yeah.
So Susan,
Yeah.
how did you keep these guys in line?
Oh, I'll tell you, it was a trip. I met Rick Rumley was my friend. I met him on campus. We were in the same neighborhood, and he introduced me to these guys and said, we need some women on this board, and we're fighting for gay rights. And I'm like, well, this sounds pretty wild. So I wanted to participate, and I went to the meetings at Craig's apartment, the infamous 8th Avenue apartments. And I'm like, this is really a trip. These guys this isn't a joke. This is very serious stuff. And I thought, I was not a political activist person. I was an art student at the time. And I said, well, I can do ads for you. I was like the first secretary. I took all the notes of the meetings, which at some point I handed those over to somebody, and I would hope that they survive somewhere, but I wish I still had them, because that would have been interesting to read.
Oh, yeah.
But I did, I got involved in, I think my part, what I like doing was the fundraising. And I don't know if you guys can see any of this, but like we did, talk about the lesbian part of this. Jack's a go-go,
Oh, wow.
We had variety shows. I judged drag shows, made ads for the Lambda Men's chorus.
Oh, my God.
Did ads
Great.
for local papers. Did the logos for some of the parades,
Oh, nice.
And I totally recall everything you guys talked about. The one thing that, I told Linda at one point, I thought it was the first parade where all those protesters showed up, but maybe I was so traumatized by whichever one they did show up at, because my job was to be down at the State House and make sure nobody beat up on any of our sound equipment, and to kind of just watch what was going on. And I remember it was one of those first years that sidewalk was just in front of the Huntington was lined up with the Christian right, like
Yep.
5 deep. And I have photographs of that. So I'll have to see if I've got any date timelines on those. But that was an experience. But like Linda said, the very first parade, it was very exciting to see the crowd, all 600 or whatever it was, come down the street. It brought tears to a lot of people's eyes down there at the State House, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because we just couldn't believe we were walking down the street like that and nobody was getting hurt or screamed out. I guess the eggs were thrown from what I just heard. But it was an experience. And also, when Celeste did what he did for us, we were all invited, you guys might remember, to the governor's mansion for a little cocktail party. That blew my mind, at the time, that old and wow, we're in the governor's mansion and we're all these gay people here and
That's right.
we're welcomed. It was an experience too. And I'm glad I was asked to be involved in it. Very glad.
Well, we're glad you came. You were one of the first, if not the first, lesbian involved in Stonewall.
I know.
And
Wow.
And then Rhonda came in. Rhonda actually came to a couple meetings there at 8th Avenue and talked about our charter and all the stuff she was going to, she did, of course, fabulous things for us. And
right.
organize us and make things legal. And, we had to learn how to, like you say, handle, money that was donated to us. And we had to have a system. So that when the board was formed, it was a great thing. And who knew? I mean, it's just fabulous that it's gone on this many years and people have carried on and worked like they have and pulled off these parades and all the services. There was no services for anybody back then. I don't think that Lavender Listings even started to like 84 or something. And people would call my house. I'm sure they called Craig and they're like, who do I call for a lawyer? Who do I call for, all these services? There was no way to help anybody but word of mouth at the time. So what's happened with just services for gay people, let alone a community center, is just wonderful.
Yep.
Very proud of being at the beginning of it.
Well, we appreciate your years of service. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was saying the same thing you were saying. You all should be we're all very proud of you. And and again, as I was saying, if you hadn't said yes, if you hadn't stepped forward, who knows what would have happened. And you just set the stage, and thank you all so very much. Wow.
Yeah,
Another thing I wanted to note, what Craig brought up, if I could, that when they wanted to have women involved in Stonewall, we would, when we had to rally people for the first parade, we went to all the gay bars and we went in the bars and handed out leaflets that night. And we were so afraid, what were we going to do when they threw Susan into the grotto that night?
We're on the grotto.
We wouldn't let women in. Wouldn't let women in. And, Stonewall had a lot to do, along with, unfortunately, when AIDS hit us, the community, the women and men came together so much more because they were very separated for a long time.
Yes,
you guys had a lot to do with bringing that, waking people up that we are not going to do this separated. And it really was those parades. And going to those bars like that really brought people together.
Yep.
Well, we appreciate that legacy, and we're hoping to continue that with the work that we're doing, because I think that when it comes to folks of all genders, that collaboration and working together is what we need to be able to move forward and uplift each other. So I think as much as we are still facing some of the same discrimination from folks, whether it be the right or whether it be folks who just aren't aware of our identities, we also have to take in consideration what we have to do within our community space and uplift each other in the work that we're doing. So folks have mentioned all the different Pride festivities that have happened all around Central Ohio and the suburbs and Franklinton. And we view that as such an achievement. and in such a level of collaboration to where we're excited that these other places are having these moments of celebration, celebrating Pride. So we really appreciate this legacy of collaboration, this legacy of putting difference aside and doing our best to uplift each other for the greater good of the community. We have a few questions. Actually, they might be more of statements than questions that I wanted to at least read out loud before we end our time here today. So we have from Neil. Neil shared that he went to Franklinton Pride this weekend and it was wonderful. So thank you for sharing that, Neil. And then we have from Michael Kingry. Hello, Val, Craig, and Craig. I was on the Stonewall board in the early 80s and have great memories of the parades. And being at Craig's 8th Avenue apartment. That apartment is apparently infamous. So
we're glad we had fun.
They also shared
we used to have after bar parties. I don't know if that still happens, but so the bars would close at 2:30 in the morning, and we would each invite people, and we would end up with 100 people packed into this little 2-bedroom apartment on 8th Ave. I'm surprised the cops never came.
Oh wow!
And there might have been the smoking of marijuana and then vast amounts of alcohol and whatever else.
And a drag party one time too.
And drag and the boyfriends and whatever. Late night. I'm surprised we didn't trash, but we probably did trash the place. So.
Sounds like you had some gracious neighbors as well, from the sounds of it.
I don't remember.
The neighbors had their own problems.
Yeah, it was a rough neighborhood, so I don't think we were doing anything that was out of the ordinary.
Oh my
gosh. Make a shrine out of that place. So, hey, I would like to challenge everybody to, I want to come to the next parade. So now I'm assuming the big next parade would be June of 22.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to get another convertible and sit with Val or Craig or all of us, and as long as because we're getting older, so we're not going to be around forever. I'm approaching my late 50s at this point. So.
Nice one.
Thanks, Craig. You look good too. Still working out. I was at the gym early. That's why I'm dressed this way.
You dress that way all the time. That's okay.
Rhonda never liked it though. She was always mad.
I want to add a couple things to that.
Yes,
my husband said to me the other day, he said, "You must celebrate that all three of you are still alive."
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, he was serious. He goes, "That's unusual." He said, "In this day and age, that you survived AIDS and everything else." And Val lost his partner Keith early on, and so we didn't all survive. But the fact that Rick Romiley passed away of AIDS, and I think that we should celebrate the fact that we all are still here. And I want to leave two things here that I would encourage people to watch if they can, because I just watched it again the other day. Is if you go online, and Zach had sent out a link to about You Can Fight City Hall.
Yeah.
And what happened when we brought the rights ordinance to Columbus City Hall. And I've watched that twice in the last few months, and I just watched it again on Friday. And if you want to know how far this organization and that city has come, watch that video. It's about 40 minutes. And it is a powerful piece. And we're all in it. Craig is predominantly in it, and rightfully so. And Rhonda's son is amazing. And also, if you can get some historical stuff and watch our early television, we had a cable access television show that was quite entertaining. We got Virginia Puzo was on it, and Craig and Susan and other people who were quite prominent on the television show. It was cable access at its earliest. Wayne's
That was
World
cutting edge
days.
stuff back then.
Yeah, it was. So if you get a chance to get it to check into the what was it called, Craig? What was it?
The Gay Pride Report.
Gay Pride Report. And someone took Senator Glenn to the cleaners in one episode. So if you get those two things, I would highly recommend. If you want to see where we've come from, and visually, You Can Fight City Hall and get a hold of any episode of Gay Pride Report.
We recently posted the YouTube link to the You Can Fight City Hall on our
Yeah.
Facebook page. So if folks are watching on Facebook Live, scroll down and you'll be able to find that link to that video. So I just wanted to say thank you so much again for our 3 co-founders and for Susan for joining us. I also wanted to say a huge thank you to Mark and for Linda for helping organize not just this event, but the rest of our Trailblazer conversations that we've had throughout the month. And we're so excited for this not to be the last time that we all are gathering together, but excited for bringing more voices like Susan to have those in-depth conversations like we had with our larger Trailblazer group. So thank you so much to everyone for the work that you put in the past, as well as the work that you're continuing to do to put a positive impact on our community.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you, everybody.
It's
Love you
it's been a
guys.
lot of fun. Love you. And
Love you.
we'll email. Okay.
Yes,
All right,
yep.
babe.
Can't wait to see you all soon.
Like,
Bye-bye.
take care.
Take care,
All right.
Susan.
Bye-bye.